Coming up tonight on America's Hope, a very important topic that you do not want to miss. How can you protect your child from online social media predators? Well, here to discuss this important matter and a lot more is Donna Rice Hughes. Now, we interviewed her earlier to talk about what's coming up because she's there, she's been at the hearing, and Donna is the CEO of Enough is Enough, national nonpartisan secular nonprofit organization that has pioneered and has been involved in leading the campaign and the fight, I should say, since 1994 to make the internet safer for our children. So what's happening in terms of the misinformation and disinformation that's affecting our teenagers and even our children on social media?
Well, thank you, Kelly. It's so great to be with you. This is a big week in Washington, I can tell you that right now. And the Senate hearing is one of many, following the heels of a number of Senate hearings that have already taken place last year and years before. So I have to tell you that at 30 years in the battle, it's a war, it's a marathon. We've won some battles and we've lost some battles, but to see this Senate work together across the aisle consistently is very heartening to me and to all the advocates, and I hope the families across the country, because we've got three branches of government and we've got an unwieldy internet and we've got a lot of crime out there. And big crime is actually preying on our kids. Child pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Sex trafficking, America is top in the world. Obviously, that is a criminal enterprise. Hardcore pornography, multi-billion dollars, and yet our country leads in these areas. And where's all this taking place? Primarily online. And where are predators preying? Online. Where are kids playing? Online. So this is what is happening. So kids are at risk, and there is serious risk. And so finally here, Congress is saying, look, enough is enough. You've had 30 years to self-regulate and you haven't done enough. And we have known, Kelly, since the beginning really of the launch of the internet in the 90s when I got started, that it often takes, you can try the carrot approach, but it often takes regulation to really get their attention. And that's what's been happening. And we've seen a lot of change in social media companies. They're starting to move in the right direction, but there's more that they need to be doing.
What about the CEOs? Do they understand how children can be led down the wrong path and be preyed upon by predators who will use social media to get into the minds of the children?
Well, that's a great question, and I do not know these CEOs, so I don't know what's in their head. But I do know that many years ago, there was a report that came out that talked about some of the top CEOs weren't even letting their kids on social media platforms. So, kind of sounds familiar, like China puts out TikTok, but they've got a different TikTok than we have here. So I think that they've got to know, but business practices have been basically putting profits over safety. And what advocates like Enough is Enough have been saying for years is that doesn't work anymore. It never did work, but now this is pandemic. Okay, let me just give you some numbers if you don't mind, Kelly.
Please, no, please.
Bark, who is a wonderful company, they actually looked at 5.6 billion activities on social media. They found that self-harm, kids, tweens, 33% of tweens were being exposed to self-harm content, 57% of teens. Sexual content, 58% of tweens were being exposed to sexual content, teens 75. Bullying, 67% of tweens, teens 76%. Now that's just on social media sites. Let me just give you a bigger picture than that. We are in, as I mentioned, a pandemic of child sexual exploitation material. We used to call that child pornography. In 2022, there were 88 million reports of content.
88 million, Donna?
88 million reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now, in those reports, there are hundreds and thousands of videos. Okay, so it's an enormous amount, largest ever in history. So this isn't just teens. I mean, the child sex abuse goes down to kids as young as infants and toddlers. In fact, 68% of these images and videos, kids were under the age of 8 years old. Here's another stat: 55% of youth are meeting their traffickers online, right? 40% of kids are talking to strangers online and giving them personal information. Sextortion has become a huge issue where kids are taking nudes of themselves, videos of themselves in sexually explicit situations and putting them online. That gets into the hands of a predator or a trafficker or an extorter, and all of a sudden now you've got sextortion. Suicide rates have gone up. 50% of kids are seeing violent pornography, hardcore pornography, which is illegal in this country under federal obscenity laws. That's most of what's out there. 50%, 58% of youth consumers are under the age of 14. And I'm talking some foul stuff here, Kelly. I mean, this is rape, torture, brutality. All right. This isn't, the pornography of Playboy 20 years ago. I mean, this is a whole different ball game out there. So this is what's out there, and this is what's online. And so the internet started really as the wild, wild west with no regulation, and it is out of control. It's been out of control, and now it's going to take an act of Congress, many acts of Congress, to rein it back in. Hence our slogan, "Rein in Big Tech."
It's staggering what you're talking about, and it's really atrocious and it's outrageous. You can give so many adjectives to this, but the bottom line is, based on what you're telling us, our children, our country's future, are in trouble. Mm-hmm. I want to take a break so that people can digest this, and when we come back, Donna, on the other side of the break, I'd like you to talk to me about some possible solutions to prevent this kind of atrocity from happening to our children. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm talking to Donna Rice Hughes, and if there's anyone in this country who is a champion for our children, it would be Donna Rice Hughes. Look, you saw this coming long before even members of Congress saw, and I would dare say even before the CEOs of these tech giants saw it coming, and you took steps to try to develop preventative efforts to keep children safe online, and you're still doing that today. Look, I don't know you personally, Donna, but I think that because you're a champion of trying to help children, you would have hoped that people would have joined on with you so that all of you can work your way out of a job and say, hey, everything's okay for our children in America now. But it hasn't happened. Why?
No, it hasn't. And that's a great point, for a number of reasons. If you look at how to make the internet safer for children, we proposed back in the 90s, and we're still working off this model today. That is, it takes a shared responsibility, everybody doing their part, okay? So parents have got to be educated, equipped, and empowered, but all of the burden pretty much has fallen on them most of this time. So we do a lot of work there. And we talk about what parents need to know and what they can do as we get towards the end of this interview. But the other is corporate responsibility and accountability. As I talked about in the beginning, the internet started as anything goes, completely open. All right. And even though Congress passed laws in the early 90s, I was part of all of this. Most of them, in fact, all but one, was struck down at the Supreme Court. The internet was so new. We were trying to extend laws that protected children from all the stuff we've been talking about to the internet. Okay. So Congress took action, but the Supreme Court didn't uphold some of these laws. I think by and large, they didn't really understand it that much at the time. Then social media comes into this. Okay. So all this time, these businesses and these companies have developed their technologies as the internet has evolved, but have not factored in safety as a driver. All right. So we call that safety by design or safer by design. So now they're having to pull it all back. After you've already invented the wheel, how do we make the wheel safe, so to speak? Which is kind of hard. And that's what we're dealing with right now.
So I've got to ask you, have any of these corporations, knowing that you're out there on the front lines, have any of them come to you for advice or even consultation about how they can regulate themselves and better safeguard our children? Since, as you've mentioned, and rightly so, some of the CEOs of these companies will never let their children touch social media until they're 18 years old. A few of them have reported.
Right. Well, over the years, we have worked with some of the tech companies. And let me just say this, Enough is Enough has been joined. When we started, there were 2 NGOs. Now there are hundreds of NGOs. Why? Because you've got this pandemic of problems from, like I said, child pornography to bullying. Huge issue is bullying and all of this. So there are a lot of groups out there, and we're constantly talking to these big companies. I will tell you, I have been in conversations with Meta. They just sent me a whole list of all the things that they've just done, which is all good. They're all steps in the right direction, right? But so if one company or a handful of them start to do the right thing, it doesn't mean they all will. This is why this industry-wide regulation needs to happen.
I want to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the family, the parental responsibilities that must be applied, mm-hmm. and the parental involvement that should be applied, and what teenagers can do to help other teenagers. And welcome back to America's Hope. We've been talking to Donna Rice Hughes about what's happening with our children and what we can do to safeguard our children. And so one of the last areas and probably the most important area, is what's going on inside the home, Donna. Therefore, mm-hmm. what should a parent be looking out for? What should a parent's responsibility be to their teenager, their tween, their young child, who in some mm-hmm. way is getting onto social media and being exposed to all these potential mm-hmm. hazards that could take place?
That's right. Well, we always say here at Enough is Enough that the parent is the first line of defense. I would say you're the first line and the last line, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of broken gaps in all of this with law enforcement, not always enforcing all the laws. We need new laws. We're trying to get these laws passed. Corporate responsibility, so there's breakdown all over here. And so parents, recognizing you're the first line of defense and that your child is not immune. That's another very important point. I talk to parents all the time, and they just think, well, okay, I've got the computer here and I'm checking what they're doing and I have some parental controls turned on and all these other things, but it's not enough, right? So every single device, this is our advice, every single device your kid uses, it's important that you become a very active cyber parent and parenting the use of that device. That goes also for every single social media app you let them download. Now, that's one of the things we're asking these companies to do, is to have parental verification, parental approval before a kid can even download an app. Okay, but right now that's not in place. All right, so if parents can just start with that and think, okay, little Johnny wants a gaming device. Am I going to be willing to be a good cyber parent on the use of that device? And that means go look at all the games, play with them, set all the parental controls on, make sure they're not talking to strangers online, all the different things that we instruct parents to do. Then consider not letting them have that gaming device. Same with a smartphone. So this is really, really important. The other thing with kids, especially when you start letting them play with these devices early on in life, they start to think it's a toy, and it's not. Teaching them this is not a toy. This is opening you up to all the good and all the bad and all the dangerous people. And as a parent, it is my job to make sure that you're safe. That means my rules.
Good advice. Good advice, Mom.
Thank you. I've got 5 grandkids now. And so there you go.
So look, let me ask you, because I know we're not making light of it, but we do know that some of the new parenting skills, I just want to be a friend to my teenager. Well, friendship is all well and good, but that's your child. and
Hmm.
you still have to remain a parent to your child, to your son, to your daughter. And when they get a certain age, then you can see that friendship grow. But isn't it true that if you're the kind of parent who's doing the right thing for your children, at some point the greatest reward is when that child is now successful, and looks at
Hmm.
you and says, "Thank you,
Oh
thank you,
yeah,
thank you."
absolutely. I work with a lot of young people who grew up in the internet age, and they say, "Oh, my parents didn't let me do this and this and this, and I'm so thankful now." And so it's hard to be a parent of a preteen and a teen.
Yeah.
It's just hard, and it's hard with all this stuff out there because they think it's a rite of passage. And then you've got the peer pressure that comes with it. But if teens are now telling us, I mean, they're confessing, I'm getting depressed using this
Hmm.
and comparing myself with this other girl or that girl, or I don't look like this or this, that, and the other. And so they're realizing that there's some issues here that are involved. But I want to also just get to, besides keeping lines of communication and building that trust, it's so important that parents use the tools that they do have. And right now, what we recommend on every device, on every social media platform, if they even have the parental control tools, turn everything on. Turn on the privacy settings to the most strict you can get. Turn on the filters. Filters work. Filters will help um, keep some of the hardcore material and CSTAM and stuff from coming through. One of the things that the hearing is going to show, or I'm going to say, okay, did show. Okay, I screwed that up. But anyway, you know what I mean. Is what technologies can these companies put into place to detect grooming that is happening on their platforms? All
Hmm.
right, we've got AI now that is going to just blow everything I've just talked about out of the water. So we have got to get all this put together now and fixed because AI is just changing the whole landscape one more time
Okay,
in a
and let's
way
be
that even.
clear. I'm glad I was going to ask you about AI, artificial intelligence, because we've seen what it's done, and a lot of Swiftie fans of Taylor Swift, have seen what AI has done to her. 45
Mhm.
million views of her, and it
Mhm.
wasn't her, in
Right.
very compromising positions, and it was up for enough to reach 45 million people before people began to challenge it and actually talk out against that. So that's another thing that parents have to be concerned about, artificial intelligence. But our teenagers
Yeah.
have to be aware of it too. How do we make them ready?
Well, I think using things like what happened to Taylor Swift is good because it's always good to use what's in the news and say, look, this happened to this popular rock star, and she's got a big following. She's able to take this down. This is happening to kids all the time. We call this deep fakes, right? And it's also happening in the area of child sex abuse material, right? Where child pornography is being created and it's not real. And there's more
Mm.
legislation now to try to deal with that. So kids can do a lot, and I think if in teens and tweens especially, when they see something happening to a friend, to step in and be an upstander. We say be an upstander, not a bystander. Don't allow this stuff. And one of the most important things is not to put personal information out there about yourself or anything that's provocative, and certainly not the sexting images. But now, even if you don't do that, somebody can take your face and put it on the body of a porn star, and now you've got a deep fake. So it's just really out of hand. And I just would say to parents, it's talk to your kids about it.
Final question is, what is your hope for America?
Oh my goodness. My hope for America is that we would return to the foundations that this country was built on. And that is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need that. We're so divided. We've got to come together and work together and just love each other.
Hmm. Couldn't say it better. I agree with you 100%. Donna Rice Hughes, thank you.
Thank you.
Back with more in just a moment.